New details are emerging right now about that bloody suicide bombing in Afghanistan, where a double agent who had gained the trust of Jordanian and U.S. intelligence managed to penetrate a CIA base, killing 8 people. Let's go live to our Pentagon correspondent, Chris Lawrence. He's watching what's going on. All right, Chris, tell our viewers some of the new information we're learning, specifically how the CIA found this guy.
Well, they got the information on him through the country of Jordan, Wolf. This is a Jordanian doctor by the name of Humam Khalil Abu-Mulal al-Balawi. He had been arrested by Jordanian authorities more than a year ago because of some suspicious activity. But the Jordanian officials didn't have enough evidence to hold him, so they let him go. That's when the man moved to Pakistan for what he claimed was studying. And he started to send emails to the Jordanian officials, tipping them off to certain plots and plans by al-Qaeda that were targeting not only Jordan, but certain Western targets as well. The Jordanian officials started sharing that information with their allies, including the United States. So over the course of a year, he is building up a relationship of trust. In fact, one former senior U.S. intelligence official says he was providing very important information on some very high-level targets.
How did he wind up inside this base unsearched?
Well, again, think about that. You've got a year now where they're building up this trust. They thought that he had given up his extremist beliefs, that he had come over, that he was possibly could be working with them. In fact, we're told that they were going to use him to try to target Ayman al-Zawahiri, you know, the #2 man in al-Qaeda. So very high-level target. What happened was, in Afghanistan, they met with this man outside of the forward operating base. They put him in a car, but they did not search him when they put him in the car. And so the intelligence officers drove him personally onto the base. Once they got on the base, he was surrounded by a small group of intelligence officers. They were going through the debriefing, questioning him, trying to learn more, and that's when he detonated a suicide vest, killing 7 CIA officers and/or Jordanian military official who had been working with them. It's not only a devastating personal loss for those families involved, but Wolf, with so many agents there, the U.S. now loses their expertise in that part of the country.
It's the worst death toll that we know of for the CIA since the 1983 Beirut bombing, when the CIA lost a lot of officers as well. All right, thanks very much, Chris Lawrence over at the Pentagon. Recruited by Jordanian intelligence and then shared with the CIA, a double agent betrays both agencies, killing 8 people on a CIA base in Afghanistan. It's a plot with multiple layers and plenty of intrigue, and in some ways it even echoes a recent spy novel turned into a major hit movie. Joining us now is the Washington Post columnist David Ignatius. He's the author of that novel, Body of Lies, and he knows a great deal about this subject. David, thanks for coming in.
Great to be here, Wolf.
Give us your initial assessment of what happened at that base in Afghanistan.
Well, you'd have to say this was a masterful operation. This
double agent.
This double agent who probably really was a triple agent. This is a man that the Jordanian intelligence service, very competent, very close ally of the U.S., had worked with for the past several years, had believed was ready to penetrate al-Qaeda at a very high level, sent him there into the Afghanistan-Pakistan area, and he comes back to meet his handlers, and he appears to have been turned once again, so that the person they thought was reliable is now operating against them. He isn't searched. It's fairly typical, I think, for agents to say to their handlers, "Don't you trust me?" They want to be accepted as part of the family. He gets in without being searched. To me, a troubling aspect of this is in spy novels that I write, but in real life. Spy work, it's typical to go outside of an embassy or a military base and meet your contacts at a safe house, as they're often called, some neutral location where you can reduce the number of people, the visibility, and the risk.
In this case, the tradecraft just poor here?
I believe that you can. I would argue that the tradecraft was poor. For some years in both Iraq and Afghanistan, to reduce the risk and vulnerability for our CIA officers, it's been increasingly typical that they don't leave these military bases or the Green Zone in Baghdad. The agents come into them. And a lot of people have argued that that's a bad idea, it's insecure. I think in light of this, there will be some changes in tradecraft. Really, the CIA needs tradecraft specialized for this environment. This is not the Cold War, it's not Moscow, it's different.
He seemed so good, potentially useful, a medical doctor from Jordan, and the U.S. CIA has very good relations with Jordanian intelligence, as you well know, and he seemed to be giving information about the #2 guy in al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri. Was it too enticing in effect?
I think it's a case of a very clever adversary. We have to realize how smart al-Qaeda is. They were holding a bauble in front of us that was just so enticing. This was precisely what would make us jump. Here's somebody who claims to have information about the location of Ayman al-Zawahiri, really the key target we'd be going after with bin Laden, and it was irresistible. And as a result, 8 people are dead. And again, if you want something that badly, you make yourself vulnerable. And I think we have to be careful about that. The whole country would love to see bin Laden and Zawahiri brought to justice, but not at the price of making our own people vulnerable.
It dawned on me, I'm sure on you, that Ayman al-Zawahiri is a medical doctor also, just like this double or triple agent. And the fact that an educated person like that could become a suicide bomber, what does that say to you?
It says the same thing to me as the Abu-Mulal case. Many of these cases involve very educated people, people who really, are at the elite of their societies, who for whatever reason have become disaffected, deeply disaffected. Zarqa, the place in Jordan that this man is said to be from, has been a special center for people like this, people who've prospered as the Jordanian economy has prospered, but have felt left out and are easy targets for recruiters. This is something we really have to think about, because prosperous, educated Muslims are all around us here in America, in Britain. They're people who are our friends, neighbors, fellow citizens. Somehow they have to help identify people, as Abu-Multal's father did, by saying, I'm worried about my son, I'm worried about my friend, I'm worried about my neighbor, because that's the only way, really, that people are going to have a handle on it.
Let's not forget that Abu-Musab al-Zarqawi, the former leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq, was from Zarqa in Jordan himself. So there's a history there. David Ignatius of the Washington Post, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Will.